Black space is a place for us.
Real people with real issues.
Discussing real topics.
Black space.
A safe space for our community.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Black Space Live. I am your host, the Lamar Finley. Tonight we got a good show for y'all. Entitled is "Did Feminism Destroy the Black Marriage?" But before we get into that conversation, before I introduce my guest, listen, do me a favor. Do me a favor. You got to do me a favor before we move forward. You got to do me a favor. Do me a favor. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and also share this good content. Sharing is caring. When you are stingy to people, they'll be stingy to you. Wise words from my nephew, who I think was like 2 at the time when he shared those words of wisdom. Y'all know I can talk to y'all all night, but with me to join in on this great conversation is my guest tonight, Neek. Neek, welcome to Black Space Live.
Thank you.
Tell the people about yourself.
My name is Neek. You can find me on Instagram, network_Neek, or Facebook, Neek Love. I am here to give my perspective in the representing Fly Femme Financial Bosses, which is also on your Facebook as well. So, yes, thank you for having me, and I'm excited.
You're welcome. Fly Femme
Financial Bosses.
Fly Femme Financial Bosses. Now I'm gonna ask you: is that for fly feminist financial bosses, or is it feminine? There's a difference.
Fly feminine.
Okay. I can dig that. I ain't gonna beat you up about that. So that's pretty dope. Is it a big group?
It's actually just rolling out. It's new. A
Okay.
new platform. A lot of women are stepping into their soft era. I don't know if you've ever heard of that phrase, but as female or women entrepreneurs, you take on a lot of masculine traits, because that's what allows us to rise in corporate America. But there's a balance that goes with that. So Fly Femme Financial Bosses caters to that balance with women.
I'm digging that. Digging that because we understand this actually kind of ties into some of the things we're going to be talking about tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So we understand that in the corporate world, right? It's a quote unquote, it's a man's world, right? If you're going to jump into the ring with men, we know you got to fight. You got to fight like men if you're going to move up that quote unquote corporate ladder, or if you're going to move up move up in those tax brackets, right? You got to fight with men over the power, right? The power, the money, the resources. But you're saying what you do is it's a balance. Right. So you get out there and you don't ding, boom, boom, boom. And then when the bell rings, you step out the ring, boom, you go back and see your soft femininity.
Well, it's not that easy. I had to find the balance within myself. Well, first I had to figure out that there was an imbalance, and trying to find the balance within myself, and knowing that it's a daily thing, a momentary, like moment to moment. It's something that, I know that other women could use support in, because I could use support in it. So all my life I had to fight. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where women, what are we supposed to do? Just sit idly by? We're ambitious, we're passionate, and we want to excel in the world. And America is built on business. If you do not have business, then you will own nothing and be nothing. So catering to that balance where we can excel in business, but also it literally is a mental health balance, because there is a point where you have to learn how to cut it off and not bring that home, because the characteristics that allow us to excel in corporate America are not necessarily good at the home front.
I agree.
And a lot of us, honestly, what's even real about it, even the most successful of women, I know, want to put that down. They want to rest. They want to bask in their femininity at times. And sometimes the world just doesn't allow it.
Okay. Put a pin in put a pin in that, because that is going to tie in almost perfectly with this conversation. And actually, we might dig into your venture a little bit later, a little more in depth. So I want to get into into the topic. And just for the record, we may have some other guests joining us tonight. Crazy weather going on. We got Hurricane Ian heading here. It was my brother's name, by the way. Hurricane Ian, yeah, he kind of called me and said, "You ready for me, bro?" That's kind of funny. But yeah, got a hurricane barreling down in the state tomorrow at some point, I guess. But I'm like I said, I'm good. I live in a high rise, so I should be good up here. We got if the flood waters get up this high, we're gonna have bigger problems. I might be looking for Noah and Ark. Anyway, let's get to the topic. So the title of tonight's show is "Has Feminism Destroyed the Black Marriage?" I'm going to start right off. Nick, do you believe that feminism has destroyed the Black marriage? Either why or why not? What are your thoughts on that, Nick?
Well, my first question would be, are you speaking of the feminist movement?
Yeah,
Yes,
specifically. Yeah.
absolutely.
Why?
If you, well, because before that movement, we were doing just fine in Black marriages. In fact, I believe that Black marriages were more than they are now, or the divorce rate was probably less than it is now amongst Black households. I do know that there were more Black-owned businesses, there were more Black communities, there were more, you know, even if they weren't married, Black households. So that's I feel like, even if we want to look at statistics, I feel like absolutely it did. It wasn't our movement to begin with.
So I agree with that point, but I'm gonna push back. I'm gonna play devil's advocate, right? So
Okay.
Black women are gonna say, but what about the evil patriarchy and abusive husbands, and we couldn't even have checking accounts, own properties, and and so we had to get our rights. Feminism was about choice. I didn't want to be a wife, or just a wife, and I didn't want to be a mama. What about those? What about the women that say, feminism gave us our freedom, our liberty, it gave us rights, it gave us power, it gave us economic power. What about the women that push back with that narrative? What is your response to that?
I'm unfamiliar completely, because my great grandmother had owned property and had land, and she actually gifted land to my grandmother and her husband, which is my grandfather. So I don't know anything about that. Like, I think that that's a story that they sell us and we buy it. Because do you know any women from that era that could not own land or was turned down for owning property?
Well, my understanding of the history of the feminist movement obviously started by white women, right? White women had a legit grievance with white
Right.
men because they
Right.
couldn't own property, they couldn't open checking accounts with their husbands. They were, obviously having children keeps them out of the workplace. It still does hinder women in the workplace. It's one of the reasons for some of the wealth, or rather, some of the pay disparities. Is that if you decide that you are going to have children, you have to take time off work to literally give birth. You have to take maternity leave to give birth to that child. So it's going to put you at a disadvantage. But a lot of white women had a legit grievance, in my opinion, with white men because they could not own. Now, I don't want to go too deep down that rabbit hole of the quote unquote patriarchy, because I don't believe in the evil patriarchy, and I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole. And I have my reasons for that. But white women had to summarize the feminist movement. White women had a grievance with white men. White men essentially had their foot in their throats and kept them from being quote unquote regular members of society, property ownership, bank accounts, credit, etc. Right? And so they were like, "We're done. We want our equality." Right? But how I feel it's affected our women is that I feel like our women took because white women, even amongst the feminist movement, there were many of them that pushed back and say, "Hey, we like being married. We like being moms." And so there was a pushback. In our community, our women have taken the baton and have run with it, and there's no pushback. We don't push the idea of family. We don't push the idea of marriage. But getting back to your point, there was a legitimate, like I said, with white women. I didn't see that with in the Black community, because it's like that same system of oppression that y'all complain about from white men, we suffered it too. What are your thoughts?
Um, well, we did, but it was different because we had man, woman, and child in the household together to 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 shield us from what we were facing from the white man, if you will. They were more vulnerable in the household with the white man, but still, like you said, you know, the baby boomer generation, they kind of ran with it, and it's coming back to bite us, now. So in essence, it has affected it because it's like, okay, well, even though it wasn't necessarily for Black women, um, we took on to it. We took on to it like, I want a voice. I want my independence. Um, they started coming up with government programs that I have yet to see um, a lot of white people in, but they came out with a lot of government programs that took the man out of the household, through this movement. And what witnessed Black women do is take advantage of that. It became like a welfare society where we just started to just procreate and have children, and it didn't matter for a paycheck, and it wasn't really about family. It wasn't even about nurturing the child anymore. It was really about the woman seeing if she could outdo the man or outdo society standards. And it's kind of like Eve biting the apple. It was a rabbit hole that just we didn't realize how detrimental it would be moving forward, and knowing what we're dealing with. So I definitely think that for Black women, it's absolutely destroyed our outlook and our vulnerability and our willingness to receive our men as we should. Um,
So, so I have a question. So again, we recognize that white women had a legitimate grief with white men,
okay.
but our women, I think, have pushed back a lot harder. Why do you think that? Because the feminism message is it's a very westernized message. It resonates in the developed nations here in the States, particularly here in the States and in Europe, right? But yet and still, why do you believe that our women, African American women, Black women in America, why do you think that it has resonated so hard? Why do you think our women specifically push so hard back against this, against just marriage? All right, and give you a quick stat. Statistically speaking, 27% of Black women can be expected to be married in America. 27%. That's like 1 out of 4, which means they have pushed back hard against this idea of marriage. Why do you think our women specifically have pushed back so hard? Because the number 2 group at the bottom, we're at the bottom, right? Our women at the bottom. The number 2 group is white women, which is at a rate of 56%. Why do you think that our women specifically have pushed back so hard?
Um, I don't think it's something that happened overnight. I think it's something that has been progressively developing. Um, just a bunch of letdowns. It's divide and conquer. That's how it began. And from just little seeds of mistrust amongst each other, little seeds of deceit amongst each other. And when I say each other, I mean Black man and Black woman. These things have been allowed to not only be planted, but grow and develop between us. And it's gone unchecked. So once it becomes a full tree in between us, it's like, now, no, we don't want to get married because it's so flawed. Everyone's so, we're both so mentally brainwashed and damaged that there's no seeing eye to eye if we don't unlearn and relearn, you know?
So you said we're both brainwashed.
Yeah.
In what way? In what ways did you say that that men are? How are men misreceiving the message? Because I think more Black men are married than Black women, statistically speaking.
How was that?
we,
Because we,
well, even though black women are married at 27%, I think men is like 36%. I think with us is like 1 or 3. One reason because black men marry out at a slightly higher rate than black women
okay.
do. Actually, at a much larger rate than black women do. And the two of the races, the two groups that marry out the most are black men and Asian women. Those two groups, and it's not a high percentage. It's not like it's in the age or something like that, but it's a significant number. But those two groups marry out the most, and so for that reason, black men, I think we marry at a rate of 14%. I think we're
Mm-hmm.
married interracial marriages, and so and black women is less than you guys marry out at a smaller rate.
Black women have
Um,
become so defiant. We don't want to listen to anybody. We don't trust enough to listen to anybody. What we trust are our own results, and that usually happens in academia or corporate America. But however, us trusting those results and relating to those results, the characteristics that got us those results will never yield us a marriage. So it's something that we have to come to grips with. Either the black man has to have an overall understanding of that dynamic, or the woman has to check herself and realize what it takes to heal. You know, it just will never work going in the direction that we're going and just keep going forward. I don't feel. That's just my opinion.
you said black women don't listen to anybody. They're defiant, is the word that you use. Let's talk about that. Talk to me. How are our women defiant? And let's just start there. How are they defiant? How are our women defiant? Let's talk about that.
Uh, uh, Me as another black woman, I can't even hold my sister accountable without her thinking that I'm hating on her, or that, I'm something. You know, I've seen black men have brotherhoods where they can, correct one another, check one another, build one another up, even though black men have a bigger ego. It's like women are just, things have gone unchecked for so long. It's so easy for, if you were to check me here publicly, for me to say, oh, you're talking to a black woman like that. Da, 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 da. And it's like everything comes back to just chaos. I don't have the reason for it, but I do know that it's there, and I do know that I see it, like, in a lot of us women, and women that I love. It's I call it a beast that's hidden within. You know, um, I've seen, even myself get into a relationship or have a male suitor try to, date me or whatever. And it's almost like, if he can't provide more than I'm providing, then it's almost like I should just have a roommate, my best friend be a roommate. Like, what is, and this is me before my healing. I would look
Mm-hmm.
at him like, what are you good for besides sex? Like, what are you providing? Actually, provision, protecting. What exactly are you doing? And even in that verbiage, it makes someone feel less than. So with women, we get to learn how to speak and communicate. Tone matters, and getting this across. It's going to take work from both sides, which is why I'm so proud of the platform that I'm building, because um, it allows for us to check these things that have gone unchecked for so long. You know, things that we want our feather in our cap for creating six-figure business. If you look on the Forbes list, most of those six-figure or companies that are top are held up by black women. You know what I mean? And if we do that for so long, then we start to think, okay, well, we're the prize now. Like, you do what I say, get on all fours. I need this move, this, that, and to have a respectable man, you just don't approach it that way. There's a way to do things, but again, if it goes unchecked for so long, that's just how it's going to spill out. you're a black man is not going to respect it, and a woman will never get married.
So one of the pushbacks to what you're saying, right, would be, I'm going to give you the pushback, play devil's advocate, right? So I've gone out here and I built myself up and I've got it together. He need to have it together too. Why he can't be on my level? Don't you tell me I can't get out here and get my money. I like to live a certain type of, I'm just being the stereotypic. I'm showing you the negative stereotype and kind of give you the pushback because I don't like it personally. I'm not, and I say this a lot. Why can't our women walk and chew gum at the same time? Because the pushback is that why can't we be successful, right? And that's not the problem. The problem is your success, because with respect to education and income, the most successful women on the totem pole are Asian women, right? But yet they're married at a higher rate than even white women. And so it's not the success that's the impediment to marriage and coupling. It's the attitude. So why do you think, first of all, why do you think that our women have that bravado, that bravado and the attitude that prevents them from coupling with men?
I don't know. I'd say for me, it was a lack of etiquette, a lack of real femininity. And I didn't know it until it had grown into a full man, to be honest with you. You don't realize it because you're becoming so successful, and it's like, this is everything that's right. You know, someone tells you that it's wrong, then you think that they're hating on you. You know what I mean? So it's really, really a delicate line, you know? I say etiquette. I say what's missing is etiquette, therapy. These are all things for any entrepreneur, for that matter, but specifically Black women. That should be part of it. Therapy and etiquette.
What are some things? Give me some tangible things, right, with respect to etiquette? Because another pushback that I get, like in some of these discussions, there's things they bring up, things like wife school. They tell our women that you're masculine, and the pushback is those are the Eurocentric ideas of what femininity is, and blah blah blah. Right? Give me some tangible things that our women do that you can identify as barriers. Like for
Showing
example,
up in
one from
public with pajamas, bonnets.
shout out to the bonnet gang.
Oh my goodness, our mouthy, um, our tone, condescension. Um, it's a lot. It's a lot.
So I'm glad you're able to say these things, because you can say them and get away with them, right? When I say these things, I'm a misogynist, I'm a terrible human, I'm everything but the child of God, right? Who raised no, what is it? I'm a misogynist, who hurt me, my mama black, you know. I'm like,
I'm
yeah,
a
all
Black
those,
too.
right. I'm like,
You
all those
know?
things are true, but it's still true. Um, if I take shots at men, I don't, or when women take shots at men, I don't hear people say, your daddy black, but a lot of those things are an impediment, right? And I believe in traditional gender roles, especially with respect to coupling. And the pushback is always, well, we're not in the traditional times and that's Eurocentric. But I've always made the argument that, if women didn't believe in traditional gender roles, why is it that the woman making all this money is not seeking a stay-at-home type guy or a guy that she can take care of? She's still looking for a guy to earn more and to be a traditional protective provider. And so but I don't ever hear anyone pushing back against that. It gets quiet. I mean, you can hear a mouse, a mouse pass Gad's crowd.
Mm-hmm.
It gets very quiet. And I always point to this idea of men are attracted naturally to femininity. That's your kryptonite, actually. It's our kryptonite. Feminine women can tame the most masculine of men. And I believe that women are attracted to more masculine men. And I think there's a huge mismatch in our culture. What do you think our women get this from, though? Where do you think they get this? Get the idea of the pajamas in public and the aggressive masculine attitudes, the mouthpiece. That's for me. That's number one. The mouthpiece, that aggressive, curse every third word, mouthpiece. What do you think they get this from? Because it didn't come from nowhere. What do you think our women today get these ideas from? Who's role modeling these things?
TV, parents, media. It has to start somewhere, because even with the parents, I would say, they had to be taught something too by their parents. So it's like it had to start somewhere. I would say it comes from media first, and then I would even venture to say it comes from Black men, and how, the lack of their reaction to the lack of respect.
What do you mean, our reaction to the lack of respect? What do you mean?
If you are not an emotionally intelligent man, your reaction to disrespect may be a little non-traditional, if you will. You know what I'm saying? It may be.
What do you mean by non-traditional? You can speak frankly. Speak freely.
You might get cussed out. You might get choked out. You know what I'm saying? And these type of things create masculinity in men. In women. If you getting beat up every night by someone who is not your husband, he's your baby daddy, he don't even live there, and your children are seeing this, what do you think they're going to experience when they grow up? How do you think they're going to behave? What characteristics do you think that they're going to think is okay and is not okay? Even if they don't grow up and think that getting beat on is okay, let's just say a young woman, how do you think she's going to respond to a man? Aggressive, because she's not going for it. You know what I'm saying? She's seen what her mom went through. She's not going for it. So she's going to be super hyper masculine out of trauma, and again, it goes unaddressed because all her mom can say is, baby, you didn't end up like me. I'm proud of you. Right. So she thinks she's done the right thing. So when she goes to raise her daughter, that's how she's raised. This is how you handle a man. You pour hot grease on him or something. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? You don't let him, he mess up one time. He call you out your name one. You don't let it go further. And it can get evil. We seen, what is the movie? Precious. We seen how,
Precious.
Yeah, with Monique, and how it's like that stuff. It's a bad heart. It's a testament to why so many of our women die of heart disease, and different things of that nature. It infects your heart. Going out there in the world, people pleasing strangers, and then going home and hating everything about it. It corrupts it'll corrupt a heart, especially, I think, one of the purest hearts and out of the most compassionate group of people on the planet, Black women. We can only take so much. It's like splitting yourself. I read a book called The Seat of the Soul, and it explained what schizophrenia is, when a peaceful person is constantly living in a war zone. It's like, how can you be peaceful and you're constantly living in a war zone? It splits your mind. It really is a mental health issue, that a lot of us don't take seriously, because as soon as you say mental health issue, you're looking for somebody that's, cutting themselves or threatening to commit suicide. And it's not that. It's pure delusion, thinking that, okay, well, I'm masculine, or I did this, I accomplished this, so I might as well be with a woman, since a man can't do nothing for me. I'll be with a woman. And then you go with a woman and you still going with gender roles. You know what I'm saying? It's like, none of it really makes sense. And I'm my own testimony to how much of a lack of sense it makes, and the healing journey, and how it will corrupt your soul and your purpose.
So there is a distrust between the genders in our community, right? We see it,
Absolutely.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
you said that, you know, this negative cycle and in the mismatched relationships, I shouldn't say mismatched relationships, and the toxic relationships that we have in our community are role model in the house or role model in the media. In fact, it was what is it? This Ayala Vanslant that said
Yes.
that our women are out of order, and she said that they're paid to be out of order. We
Wow.
role model the negativity. You look at some of the more popular figures in Black popular culture, right?
Who they
Female
push
Black
to
or
the fore.
woman
Yeah.
Black,
It's the
yeah,
people who
like
they push to the forefront. What happened to
right,
Lauryn Hill? You know
right.
what I mean? The ones that they push to the forefront, like, oh my goodness. Go ahead and complete your sentence. I'm so sorry.
No, no, you're good. No, you're good. You're
The ones
good.
that they
It's
push to the
mhm.
forefront has every woman now that has gone unchecked, wanting to look like what's her name? What's her name? Daisy Duck. You got eyelashes out to here. Everyone gets the BBL. You know what I'm saying? And everyone looks the same. So it's no longer, that's how you know, like, it's no longer even about your heart anymore and who you are anymore. You know, you just want, this is the microwave generation. Everyone wants just to look like a couple, look like success, and not really be what it is. Substance is a thing of the past.
There is no substance. There is no substance. And it's funny you bring up the lashes and the makeup and the hair and stuff like that. It's our women today are literally the what was a caricature of a woman back in the 90s. It was a joke. You think of the episode of Fresh Prince where he was, I don't remember who he was dating at the time, but they were kind of stuck in, you remember the episode, he was stuck in the thing. And Tisha Campbell's character, she took off her nails and
Oh,
gave it to her and took off her wig, and and Will kind of put those things on and making fun of her. It used to be a joke back in the day. I'm
like
gonna get you, sucker.
Wanda, what was it?
Yeah,
I'm
well,
gonna
yeah,
get you,
yeah.
sucker.
I'm gonna get you,
All of
sucker. Where
these,
the girl he was on the date and
oh
she
my
took
goodness, took off her
she took a
legs.
leg. Yeah, and yeah, Wanda. All those things were like it was a joke. It
Yeah.
was a joke, but now it's embraced,
Mm-hmm.
and it's primarily embraced by us, and of course, Black people have a huge influence on the culture because they love our culture. They love our popular culture at least, and so
Mm-hmm.
now it's beginning to reverberate in other communities. But we embrace it. We embrace it. I always wonder, where did that come from? Because with respect to marriage, right? And I have this argument all the time. With respect to marriage and finding a wife, Black men aren't looking for that. It'll get you BBL will get you sexual attention. That stuff will get you sexual attention, but it won't get you real attention. So again, and I ask this question, and because we're pretty much the same page about a lot of stuff. Why is it? Why do we embrace? Why do our women? Why do you think our women embrace it? Why do
Because
they embrace the caricature?
it looks like that's what's being embraced in the world at large. When you go on your social medias, when you go on, when you watch TV, it looks like that's what the world is embracing at large. So when we do it, we're thinking, okay, so now I can get out of my little hometown and I can be embraced by the world at large. And before they get to my corrupt heart, all they'll see is my physique and I'll be able to get what I need and go, or create, manipulate the situation to what I want it to be. So it looks like a win-win situation when you look at it from TV, because on TV these women are coupled up. They're partnered up. They're not complaining about anything. You see Cardi B nails out here, WAP, and she, for all intents and purposes, she has one of those power couple relationships that Black women look for, you know? And we're chasing waterfalls. We're chasing illusions. We are being, it's we're delusional ultimately.
Mm, I've used that word many times and have watched over my shoulder as I walked out in the public after using that word. Delusion. I agree. I agree. I think that a lot of things that you have identified, I've said, the attitudes are an impediment. The caricature of, what women, should look like are an impediment, which is ironic, is that in the 80s and 90s, there was a natural movement, and our women embraced it. It's something they did in the 70s too. So Afro was a
Afro.
natural, but we embraced the natural look. And we just kind of like taken that and said, nope, no more. We don't want to be natural anymore, because Black women set the beauty standard. I will stand on a mountaintop and declare it. Black women are the standard of beauty. Black
Absolutely.
women are because y'all come in
I
all
mean,
colors,
and even that
shapes.
caricature is a standard of beauty. That's Sarah Bartman. They just
Yeah.
media. Okay, so in the 80s, crack is what destroyed the Black community. Now it's media that's destroying the Black community. It's hip hop culture that's destroying the Black community. The crack of our times has changed. So while there's something that they've created, they've taken one of our greats, created a caricature, and now they're using it to set the standard or a new standard of beauty amongst us, but it's all superficial. It's not real. And before we self-destruct, I hope we realize that, because these things cause irreparable damage. In other countries, I've lived in Jamaica. I mean, there's skin bleaching going on, and a man can't tell a woman to stop. Jamaica has some of the most independent-minded women. They're good women for all intents and purposes, but they're very independent-minded, and yeah, it's problematic.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Jamaica, because I've been all over the globe. I've been all over the globe, literally, and I dated out for a while. And when I say dated, I mean dated out, dated non-African American women. And Jamaica, I've dated Jamaicans. I've been to Jamaica many times, and you are correct. Of the Caribbean countries, actually of the other countries, they are outside of like Europe. They are very independent minded in Jamaica, which I thought to be very interesting, that they have that, and they're not in a country where women are even have the liberty to be protected like that. So in America, you can go outside and say the hell with men, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and you can mouth off to a man twice your size and be expected to be protected. Whereas down there, you're not going to do that, but they still have that mentality, even to their own bad outcomes. They have that mentality, and I always found that to be interesting, and I've always been curious as to why. But getting back on
I think it's because of that buck breaking thing. I think our men have been disrespected so blatantly in our face that maybe we just don't know how to come back from that in our psyche. you know um I've gone through, why the whys, because I observe people in my travels and things like that. But I think it has something to do with the buck breaking, or maybe our men have just been so completely disrespected to us in our face, and that's why we're so mouthy, are not going for it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, no, that's why we want the hyper masculine man who's not going for it either, because previously that's what I wanted, because it's like, then I can relax a little. I don't want to be hype, so I need a man that's going to be on point, not go for it because everybody's trying to take us for what we have, and I need you to be the protector. And I think for a lot of, not just Black men in America, but Black men in the Caribbean, they've kind of learned to see and not say so much. They may see a problem, they may not address it, for the sake of just getting along and going home and seeing another day, and that's, for a lot of Black women, is not something that we respect.
So get back, bring it back here to Black women in America, and back to the conversation about the feminist movement. Another offshoot of the feminist movement was this whole idea of like the sexual revolution, right? Women they wanted to move like men. In addition to not being moms, they wanted to be able to go out, get the careers, moving like men. It's kind of funny because there's many stories about this ideology was pushed. And the irony, here's the irony about this ideology being pushed of, not being wives and being these great, movers and shakers in corporate America and moving like men, because you got birth control pills, you have to worry about getting pregnant so you can move like men and have, multiple sexual partners, et cetera, and have your hot girl summers, right? The irony is that this narrative is being pushed by a bunch of women that were married, that were happily married. That's a whole nother conversation. It's a book called Subverted that kind of talks about that. But
what's the book called?
Subverted. I believe
Subverted.
I got that.
Okay.
Subverted. I believe I got that correct. Book called Subverted. There was an interview with one of the editors of Cosmo magazine. Cosmo magazine was like it was like before social media. Obviously, we had magazines and other sorts of media, but Cosmo was like the magazine, right? It was like the magazine back in the day. I think it's more of our parents' time, more so.
I remember.
They kind of died out, but it was like the magazine. They used to push these narratives about kind of the Sex and the City narrative, right? Mm-hmm. That narrative, about the career woman who, kind of has your casual flings with the guys and kind of like guys move, like bachelors move.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea and the editor in chief and one of the writers said that they were happily married, and they were like, if their men would have done any of that stuff, they'd have killed them. But that narrative, they said they did it to sell ads. They were writing these stories and making up these stories to sell ad space. And so, but getting back to my question, this whole idea about, sexual freedom, do you think that has had an impact on, Black women marrying in our community? Why?
Absolutely.
Why
it's had an impact on marriage. It's had an impact on our mental health. You can't just go around having a bunch of different entities enter your body. We are receivers. You can't just go around having a bunch of entities enter your body and not think that there's something that's going to stick with you, energy wise, anything. And it's like, for me, I've been celibate 15 years. Right.
Lord, clamor.
And I'm not even saying that to brag. I'm almost sad at this point because it's only getting worse. Yeah.
That is a side note. That is something that only women can do. Men cannot do that. Intentional celibacy.
Well, now it's not intentional. Now it's not intentional. It's just like, where is every real human being? Because now we don't even know if we're walking around with real human beings anymore. It's just about loving yourself, like not just wanting yourself to be all over the place, and knowing already that you were birthed in trauma and there's already things that need to be healed. Why add on to it? Why add on a bunch of extra stuff to it? You don't know what this person is going through, and you just, for the sake of 15 minutes of fun, you want to just let this person enter your body. And then you have the orgasm, and then you have so much clarity, and it's like, I didn't even have to do that. So it's like, why?
But the pushback would be, so here's the pushback. Men do it. Men do it all the time. Why can't, if he can do it? Let me stop with that.
No,
stereotypical.
Men
but if
do
men,
do
there
it,
was the pushback would be, if men can do it, why can't women do it?
Because we're different. Why do you, as a woman, and I'm talking to a woman, why do you want to be like a man? Why do you want to be like a man when we have the ability to carry life? The breasts that God gave us are not dysfunctional. We can actually bring humans into this world. We operate from our heart chakra up. Why do you want to be like a man who operates from his root chakra? Like, take pride and have value in the fact that you are different. Don't want to be like. That's how we got into this, trying to be like. And now we're in a rabbit hole can't nobody get us out of. I could try. But I mean, it's going to take all of us and God to get us out of this one, because we thought it was something that what we have to do, both of us, male and female, is realize who's feeding us stuff and not always be so hungry to take a plate from someone, because sometimes our enemy could be feeding us something and there's poison in it. And that's exactly what happened with the feminist movement. That's exactly what happened with what you were saying, the bunch of married women giving advice on birth control. They're giving us food that has poison in it, and we got to watch who's handing us these plates. It's the same thing going on in politics. If you want to get into that, the Democrats say they're doing all of this stuff for people. I remember Nancy Pelosi say, no, we're going to take care of them. We're going to, it's like, you're going to take care of who? How's she doing? 81 million people to have voted for this man. This has been the quietest 81 million disappointed people I have ever seen in my life. And that's why I know something is seriously wrong mentally. People are fighting battles mentally that they're too ashamed to speak out on so many levels, because they might get the pushback from the angry Black woman and they don't know how to handle that. You know what I'm saying? We get to allow ourselves to be wrong to each other. Like, you can be wrong.
Yeah.
Be safe with me. Be wrong and be safe with me.
You said something that I've never actually heard anybody say with respect to this whole conversation of moving like men. And you said, why do you want to be like men? Why do we want to be like men? That's a very good question that I'm going to steal, and I'll send you a royalty check because I use it. That's a very good question. I literally have never heard that question asked when I've asked a question about between the two genders, because there's definitely an issue within our community of competition amongst the sexes. And if you ever have the opportunity of sitting on the stage with George Milton, he's one of the hosts of the show. Shout out to George Milton, man, that brilliant mind. He talks about this competition between the sexes. Black men and women are competing with each other. That competition, instead of coupling, right, and working together, we're competing, and that is adding to the destruction. It's definitely adding to the destruction of our community. And one of the biggest things that I push back against, and I talk about this all the time, because I'm going to kind of move back into the marriage conversation, is that, if one person can build, right, two people can build more. George said, Black men are strong, but with the right woman, he's a superhero.
We got to listen to one another. I'm building on this end, you're building on that end, and we choose to couple. If you giving me advice or pointers, babe, listen, that might be a blind spot. You could do this differently. It'll help, on that end. If I don't want to listen, I've been doing this by myself before you got here for however long. Stay on your side. I know how to, it's like we got to learn we got to trust one another to listen to one another, and one thing that we don't want to be is wrong, because for the wrong Black woman, if you're wrong, you're going to get chewed out for the rest of your life for being wrong one time. For real.
That's true. That's true. I've made that argument as well. Black men don't have the space to make mistakes that other groups have. Here's an interesting stat. To throw at you. A lot of pushback against, like, when we talk about, because my next question is going to be about leadership, is that the pushback is that Black men are abusive. Grandpa was abusive and grandma stayed in this abusive relationship, which I think is utter nonsense. Do you know what group has the highest rate, at least in this country, of spousal abuse?
Yeah, police officers, white ones.
Well, yeah, that group specifically, but in terms of race, our Latin brothers and sisters have the highest
really,
rate. And they have the highest rate.
The highest. Listen, when I go to the store,
they have one of the highest rates of marriage.
They are so predictable, and they are very loyal, because when I go to the store, I never see a Mexican, Hispanic woman paying for her groceries. I see that man pull out a wad of his cash and pay for those groceries. I don't care how little he is. He got his cash, I don't see no EBT card. I don't know what they do with it, if they got it or not. But when I go to the stores and I'm in line, that's what I see. You know what I mean? They still do the traditional gender roles.
Because that's the respect. So, and I often say this.
How do we get our respect back?
That's a good question, because I often say this, right? And when I hear about what our women want out of the man, right, I say that y'all don't want the dude that worked the plan. He got to work it and own it, right, in order to get that kind of respect. Whereas, Jose can, he can be out on the corner selling fruit and still come home and get the same respect that Chad the banker gets from his wife. And I will never understand that dynamic.
What Black men and women, we may be consistent. Let's just say we find something like that nowadays, and if it's an argument, the Black man is going to take that money away. He's going to stop, or somebody's going to stop their duty, and that's not how it works, because it's like a tit for tat now. So now you mad, now I can't get the car, or now you mad and something, and it's like, whether Jose and Maria have a fight and Maria got a black eye, Jose gonna still fulfill his obligation and Maria gonna still fulfill her obligation. You know what I mean? It doesn't work like that. We hold our grudge. Oh, no, you didn't. The fight may be over in 5 minutes, but the argument continues for the next 5 years. So
I have a question. But I thought a question with respect to leadership, right? So I'm going to assume you believe in traditional gender roles. Yeah.
Yes.
So you believe that men are the head of the household?
Yes.
Do you believe that Black women as a whole believe that?
Hell no.
Why?
I know they don't.
Why?
I was raised by a Black woman and man.
Why don't they believe that?
Well, in my opinion, it's a lack of accountability, because they choose wrong. So when they choose wrong and that man is not a leader, then it just spills over to their conversation of, I don't believe Black men are leaders. For me, I will say I could not find a Black male leader because I was operating in the wrong circles. I didn't take etiquette classes to put me in around different men that I felt comfortable with, that would treat me in a way that I felt I could follow and submit. Right.
Now,
so
pause for a second. Pause for a second. Now, Black Space, this is my first time being on the show with her. I have not cash apped her. I have not paid her. She does not have a script. This is Neek speaking of her own accord. I promise that, because I have a reputation of saying some of the things you're saying, but continue. Don't let me stop you.
So yeah, I have never actually watched the show, or I've never met Penny. So this is definitely coming from my own growth and seeing how, like, just recently, how I've been standing in my own way. Like, I almost had that same conversation of, I can't find a good Black man, or not one that I want to submit to, and it's like, that was me. That could have been my end all be all conversation, but I had to go back and be like, okay, so what, the type of men that I want, they may not want me on this level that I'm on. So how do I build myself up and to get to a level where I am attracting the type of men that I want, that I want to submit to, that I want to, because I know there's men like that. I see them, and I'm like, wow, I love a man. It's almost like when I was in high school, I used to say, if I don't marry a guy like Tupac, I'll never get married. So this was when I was into the whole hyper masculine man. He's got to protect me. He's got to be mouthy, so I don't have to be mouthy. You know what I'm saying? So I remember saying that, and it's like, some women have these ideals and they know the type of man that they want. They just don't know how to attract that man, and they don't know what's blocking them. So they get with these men and then they just complain the whole time. And it's their own fault, but they won't ever admit that, because accountability is like kryptonite to a Black woman, most of them.
She said it. I didn't say it. She said it. She said.
And I
She
say
said
that
it. I didn't say
out of
it.
love and respect. I am a Black woman. I have dated Black women, and my mother's a Black woman. So I'm not saying that to bash at all. I'm saying that because that's been my journey. I've seen it threefold within myself, within the partners that I used to pick, and within someone that birthed me. You know. So I say that
It,
with the utmost respect.
and I appreciate you being on this show, because for you to get up here and say we need accountability as well, and I chose wrong, and I had to figure out how to put myself into a position to attract that type of man, and a lot of women won't admit that. They will blame the crop in which they are harvesting from versus the field in which they're trying to harvest.
Mm-hmm.
And when men push back against that, because we'll tell a man, let's flip it for a second. If I'm a guy and I'm complaining that I can't attract a certain type of woman, women will quickly, or if I'm getting used by a certain type of women, right? If I'm paying all this money and I'm not getting the results, women will tell you, listen, you're choosing wrong. You're attracting a certain type of woman. And I had to learn this myself, when because I used to lead, with money and thinking that was going to attract a certain type of woman. And it did. It certainly attracted a certain type of woman. She
Not
wasn't
what
with
you
me
wanted,
for me.
Yeah.
She was with me for, for dollars. And I say all the time is that, we relegate, especially Black men, we relegate them to two things: pocketbook and a penis. We don't worry about character. And when it's too late, then we want to look for character after we've, run through enough penises and pocketbooks, and we begin to realize that. But I'm glad that you pointed it out as well, that you are what you attract, and if you want different outcomes, you have to do different things. So I appreciate you for saying that. So I want to ask another question. With respect to marriage, because in our community, we have this idea of delay, 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 delay. Get out there, figure yourself out, figure out who you are. Sow your oats. This is what we tell our women. Then look for husbands. What do you think about? First of all, what do you think about that message of
I
delay,
think
delay, delay?
No, I think for women, honestly, we should go from our parents to our husband. Stay out the street. Stay out the middle passage. The middle passage is what f's us up. That's where the trauma. That's where we get that baggage. And
She
then when
called
we
it the
start,
middle passage. I like that, by the way.
yeah, that's what
I see what you did there. I see what you did there. But
that's
continue.
that's what messes us up. It's that middle passage. Um, and oftentimes it can be avoided, but I guess the feminist movement makes it so, oh, you're too young to get married, or you want to live your life a little bit. What about this? What about that? And it's like, for women, I feel like there's no reason to sow your oats. There's no reason you and even going further, I can see arranged marriage as being like something that is beneficial to us, for successful, long-standing relationships. But in all, I feel like if she goes from her parents' home to her husband, then there's really little room for error, like outside stuff, the worldly temptations, and that whole thing. I don't know what to call it, because it's like some religious people may call it the world, or it could be just a overwhelming idleness. So you got just time for social medias and friends and going out, and you're experiencing all these different perspectives and things like that, and it can change your outlook. It can change your level of respect. And if you're not careful, it can traumatize you. If you're too carefree, if you're too naive, it can traumatize you.
You bring up some good points, and man, that middle passage one was deep. That was ocean deep. But that was deep. What you said there. There definitely is a lot of trauma and unnecessary exposure to our women specifically, because I believe that I'm old school and I believe in traditional gender roles, but respect to our women, I believe that our women should be protected, and you get that protection in the house from a father. And even if you don't even because in our community there's a lot of I mean, dad may be involved, they may not be in the household, but I still think that you still get protection from the home, and then you go to the husband, which then continues that protection. And when you're out here in the world kind of moving by yourself, you don't have any protection.
That's when that seed of masculinity is planted, and then it, depending on how long you're out there, it has room to grow. And the bigger it gets, the harder that beast is to combat, and the less you realize that it's there.
You are dropping some gems tonight, Nick. You are dropping some gems tonight. I definitely want to continue bring you back for a future conversation. That you are very necessary for future conversations, because again, you are able to say things that I definitely cannot say. Oh my goodness! Someone got so upset at me at one of these shows. She left the middle of the show. She got so pissed at me in the middle of the show. We were having it was an impromptu conversation. I don't want to get too far off time. It was an impromptu conversation about Roe v. Wade. And I tend to stay away from those.
Oh, wow.
Those, it was fresh after the Supreme Court overturned it. Maybe days later, we had this conversation. She was former law enforcement. And boy, she was pissed at me for some of the things that I was saying. And she made a claim that I just couldn't let go. And I kind of pushed back. And I won't get too far down the line, but you are able to say some things that I definitely cannot say. But I agree with you, and I wish that we had more women, standing up and saying, it's okay that we're women and we're different. It's okay that we move in spaces to be protected by our men. There's nothing wrong with that, because a lot of women, they don't believe that. They move and preach, even though the test of time will show them that's how it really is. They push back against it until they get to a point in which they can't push back anymore, and then by then it's like, your clock has run out.
It's delusion. It's
delusion. Yeah, it is, and so you bring up a lot of good points. I'm gonna ask another question with respect to marriage. If you could put an age for the audience, if you give the ladies an age, you're talking to a million Black women, right? What age would you say would be an ideal age for a Black woman to get married?
21.
If you can get 21. Whew. Why 21? I agree with you. Why 21?
I feel like she's sexually, I won't say at her peak, but ready to experience something daily. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's like, you want to have that good childbirthing age, and you're still growing, so you have time to grow into your marriage at that point, and still, raise your children and live a nice life. You can still live a full life after that. Like a lot of people think that children tie them down, but when you're doing it properly and you have the proper support, then once they turn 18, you're preparing them to do what you have done, and you can set them off correctly, and you can go ahead and live your life. But it's too many of us that want to go and live our life, our best life. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not removed from that. At this point, I'm taking advantage of it, for me, because I don't have children. But if I could turn back the hands of time, obviously, if I knew then what I know now, things would be different. But I didn't. I had to go through it to learn it, to know it. I could look back at my grandmother. I think she was with my grandfather for 68 years. Most of their life they were together. She died at 87. So it's like these type of things we can't fathom. Yes, granddaddy had some outside children. They still remained, And
see, that alone is going to get that alone would get a lot of black women to push back, though. They're going to,
but this is the thing.
why should I deal with the children? I don't want to deal with the children.
My grandmother didn't have to deal with these children, but here's my thing. They still have a foundation that their progeny is living on right now, that baby boomer generation don't have. So all that independence and freedom, you may have gotten a house, but probably don't have it now. You know what I'm saying? It's like grandma and them still got their house unless the next generation sold it. You know, they didn't leave much, but what they built while they were here is a foundation. You know, we were supposed to catapult off that foundation, not, you know, ostracize ourselves from it. We're supposed to add on to it and build up. And, you know, you can't even find siblings to get along after grandma and them pass away because everybody fighting over the money. Everybody wants to look like success to strangers.
I think that one of the problems, and it's generational, because certainly every generation, in my opinion, is becoming less and less selfless. So last year, I had the misfortune of burying, my cousin and my great uncle. It was my great uncle's. So my first cousin, her husband, she lost her husband, she lost her dad.
Oh.
Literally back to back within a week of each other to COVID. And
I hear that.
but I talked about my uncle's legacy. Mm-hmm. He was married to my aunt. They got married young in their teens, and they've been married. I said 50 years. They've been married over 60 some years. Mm-hmm. I didn't know they were married that long, but I knew they were married a long time. But I knew they were married that long. But talk about the selflessness and legacy. We always talk about the bad stuff, right? You know, they built a business together. They owned a business together. They owned a couple of daycares. They owned property, but they did very well. But the thing that is most impressive, and I talked about most with him, is the legacy. All of his kids were married. They had 4 minutes. Him, my great aunt had 4 kids. They all got married. But here's the legacy part. That's step one. Most of their grandkids are married. Most of their grandkids went to college. You know, even though my great uncle and aunt kind of, I don't think they weren't college educated, but they built the business. They're Southerners. They built the business together. They were married. Their kids got married, but that's the legacy. They were selfless and they stuck it out. And I know their marriage wasn't perfect, but they stuck it out because they understood that it ain't about me, right? It's about legacy. It's about family. And I watched this and I talked about that and I have great respect for that man. Even when I used to visit my aunt and uncle, I would always go in just to kind of talk to him, just to kind of get some, kind of words of advice and encouragement, because he was a man's man.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that we have that mentality. And I'm pointing the finger at our women, that of this selflessness and doing for our families, because if we did, we wouldn't see the court fights. We would see more of the marriage. We'd definitely be pushing marriage before we carry. We wouldn't have this idea like I can do it alone. And we wouldn't see even if things didn't work out, we wouldn't see the selflessness as respect to kids, and we wouldn't have this thing called gatekeeping, which I won't get into that. It's the idea. It's the moms basically preventing the dads from being involved in the kids. It's called gatekeeping. But it's such a selfish nature and environment, and it's not about the us. It's not about the we, because if we understood that piece, that we are in this together, that same system of oppression that we can defeat, by the way, because we have the political access and the resources now. If we were coupling, my goodness, we dominate. We would dominate. We're holding ourselves back.
Yes.
It's not the system anymore. It's we're holding ourselves back. We're allowing those systemic influences to kind of hold us back, and we don't see the bigger picture. And man, I push heavily about marriage because we talk about all this wealth, talk about all this education our women are getting, and I say all the time, you can't build wealth by yourself. Everybody ain't Oprah, and even Oprah's wealth is gonna temporarily benefit the community, because my prediction, I could be totally wrong, is that when she dies, it'll definitely go into trusts and foundations that are going to benefit the audience that built her, which is primarily white women. That's what I believe. Unless,
Absolutely.
She dies and I see otherwise, I think it's going to be, but there's a lot of not Oprahs out there that may have gotten good careers and have had great careers. Maybe they don't make millions. They made, good money. They own homes and they'll die and who to go to. There's no kids to pass it on to. You know what I'm saying? There's no families because these women, they never coupled up. And it's like, what was the purpose of building that?
Right.
What was the purpose? Where's the legacy in that? And when I push that narrative, I am screamed down from the mountaintops.
Well, I'm guilty of it. You know what I mean? So I can't scream at you because that hits home. So it comes down to, again, for me, it came down to just realizing that, and what can I do about it from here? How can I um, redirect the trajectory of where I've been pushing my energy, and creating foundations for us, by us, like Fly Femme Financial Bosses, that if something were to happen to me, it can go to this foundation that caters to the healing so that it's not a perpetual thing. So the next generation of women don't have to do the same thing, or realize the same thing too late. Because now they're not just, it's not just a pin in Black marriages. You got, the LGBT, the alphabet thing coming in now that's infiltrating our minds and our youth and things like that, So, and I'm sure they'll get married. So that'll, if you want to look at it like that, we're talking about traditional marriage though. How do we get back
but they understood the power in marriage. That's the thing that I try to push home, with our women and pushing back so heavily against marriage or just a piece of paper. And for those, not just necessarily our women, but the people that say it's just a piece of paper. Listen, the LGBTQ plus community recognize the power in marriage. They recognize that there's power there. That's why their community is so financially strong. That's why their community is so politically strong, because they understood marriage ain't just a piece of paper. There's a lot of power and protection that comes with that piece of paper, and so they even recognize, hey, listen, we need to can we be married too, so we can begin to combine assets and build and create, in our own legacy moving forward. But we haven't got there. But I appreciate that you recognize, you're holding yourself accountable. You recognize where you failed, but you're still preaching the proper narrative. And I appreciate that. So as we, wrap up a little bit, it's been a great conversation. A great conversation.
Thank you.
I would love to have you. I'm going to have you on future shows, so you can continue to spread the good the good news.
Word.
Good word. Good word. So before we close, I want you to just kind of tell people where they can find out about your organization. Talk about a little bit. Like, where can people find out about your organization?
Well, Fly Femme Financial Bosses, we're on Facebook. We're on TikTok. We're on YouTube, and soon to be still developing our Instagram channel. But yes, please stay tuned, or if you can, just like our page. You'll always see something very motivational, uplifting, and to get us a reset for us as a community, so we can get ourselves right. It's time to get right.
Nick is saying you can conquer the world and conquer your husband too. You can walk and chew gum at the same time. That's what Nick is saying.
See, it's power in submission. You know what I mean? It for Black women.
There's that word. Woo, submission. It's a dirty word in our community. You don't say that word out loud, Nick.
We just been choosing wrong. So we just been bitter about that word, because it's like we've been submitting to, I don't know, like babies, underdeveloped muscle, It's time for us to up our emotional intelligence and really start to handle ourselves differently as a people.
I agree. So before we close, I always give, I don't want to, because this has been a really spirited conversation. It gets pretty deep. I like to lighten up a little bit with some positive close on. So this is your opportunity, Nick, to give the people something positive moving forward with respect to the topic. Give us something positive, Nick, close on.
Something positive. When you wake up in the morning, don't turn on your cell phone. Keep it off. Do something that fills you up, whether it's give yourself a facial, stretch, go ground in your yard. Ladies, I'm speaking to you. Just bask in your femininity a little bit before you engage with the world. Give yourself some time.
Okay.
Hopefully that's positive.
No. It's positive. And I'm going to close with this. We need to continue to move in good faith in our community. And it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to be wrong. We're not right all the time. We make mistakes. And, it's okay. I'm a Christian. The Bible says a wise man will fall 6 times and gets up 7 times. And so it's okay to fall down as long as you continue to get back up. And be humble. I'm going to repeat that many times. Be humble. It's okay. It's okay. It doesn't make you look weak.
It's gangster to apologize. Even.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm a pilot, Neek, and as a pilot, you have to stand strong when you're right, but be quick to admit when you're wrong, because the wrong move when flying a plane, the passengers' lives are at stake. So you gotta know when you're wrong and step back and let somebody that's right step up.
Interesting.
So there's a strength in it. So listen, Nick, I've appreciated you joining. For all of those of you out there in Cyberland, for joining us for another great episode of Black Space Live. Tune in right here to this great channel for more great content. And remember to like and subscribe to our page, and we appreciate you. And until the next time, peace.